just have to against the USB, so again. So, okay. Ready. Just want to double check. Yep. Okay. Well, good luck with it. Okay. Appreciate that. On this stuff, you want to give stuff out, give one or two out, answering questions, that's what it's okay. Awesome. Found what you're looking for? Yeah. Auditorium. Okay. Oh, yeah.
All right, it's time, so let's begin. My name is Margarita Rivera. I'm a planner here at Tremont. I'm a soil health planner at Tremont, and I'm here to introduce you AJ Richards. Thank you.
All right, so I'm assuming if you're in the room, you might be selling livestock of some kind, right? Because looking for direct-to-consumer information and stuff like that. So I'll introduce myself briefly, but just so you guys know, today's presentation, I'm going to introduce you to who we are, what we do. Tomorrow is the keys to the kingdom of how we do it. So I'll explain a little bit more about how we see this and why we do it. So this could easily say, you raise it, you sell it, but there will be people in between. But what we try to do is remove all of the middlemen between your hard work and the consumer, and us be the only person in between. Now, if you genuinely have an interest of going direct on your own, we also want to help you do that. And I'll explain a bit more about that as we go. So, we are Regenerative Pastures and Wyoming Legacy Meats. We own the USDA processing plant in Cody, Wyoming. Regenerative Pastures is our direct-to-consumer regenerative agriculture business. Wyoming Legacy Meats is a traditional meat. It's raised on grass until they get into a feedlot. We're not using antibiotics or hormones, but it is finished on corn and grain. There's a market for that, and we're going to provide for that as well. So we have some goals for our mission that we're out to create. First one is scale to build the largest direct-to-consumer 100% primal and drop company in the U.S. with zero imported products. So, everybody familiar with ButcherBox? You guys have heard them? 100% of their meat's coming from Australia. So, there's no need for that. We have enough producers in the state preaching to the choir that we shouldn't be importing the amount of beef that we are if we can all go direct to consumer ourselves, right? We can feed American ranchers, feed an American family. So, that's our first focus. Then we're looking at support. So, support the producer by purchasing livestock that meets the needs of the modern consumer and price points higher than market value. So, modern consumer, when we talk about that, we're kind of slow to adopt new ideas, but grass-fed and grass-finished, when I started selling grass in 2020, the meat plant that I was taking our animals to, hippie beef. That was okay because I was making more than the non-hippie beef, right? So it's a slow adoption, and what you guys are going to be hearing these today and tomorrow is what can happen when you go regenerative or start using cover crops on your row crops and raise beef that way, right? And there's a very specific market for that, and they will pay more because of the nutrient density of the product, and honestly, they're going to pay more because of how it's raised. The urban community, which is what we have to do, connect urban with rural, they are involved when the producers are making an impact on the climate, right, in a positive way. That's the messaging that's happening, and so we're focused on how do we connect the dots between those two communities. Advocate for the success of the producer, however that looks. So again, we have our direct-to-consumer business. We also want to support every producer that wants to create that same product for whoever they're going to or wherever they want to go as well. And I'm going to explain why that's how we see things, maybe different than, like I said, tomorrow's keys to the kingdom. And it doesn't affect us and it doesn't concern us at all. We want to bridge the gap between rural producers and urban consumers, tell the stories of the people doing the hard work, because this is a storytelling game. So communities need to become the hero of their own journey and connect that to your product. Because when they eat a box from your business, they are supporting the American rancher, they are supporting the environment. If you're integrity, decentralizing the food supply chain and reducing the food travel miles, improve the relationships of everybody involved. And then environmental, support soil health and regenerative agriculture practices, education and verification processes through nonprofit. So we'll touch on each of those as we go. So who we are. I'm a half-breed. I'm the city slicker cousin of a fifth-generation ranching family. To put it simply, I grew up going to family meetings and listening to everybody argue about how this chunk of land was being taken, or this chunk of land is under threat, or this water's being cut short, or, I mean, you name it. I was in all the family meetings, all growing up, listening to these challenges that my family that were raising cattle were facing. Now, that put me in a unique perspective because I got to go out and have fun every time it was time to do the big cattle drives and do the branding. That was my favorite thing to do, still is. But I also wasn't in that environment every single day. I spent 11 years in Phoenix, Arizona. I got to know what the urban community is listening for and how they communicate, right? And what matters to them. If we as producers, or you as producers, keep speaking language that only producers understand, we're not connecting. Does that make sense? We have to learn how to speak the language of the urban community because that's where the majority of the consuming is happening. And so if we can reach them through the right messaging, then we can increase the revenue for each of your ranches or start to secure the supply chain inside the United States more. We know there's some other challenges to that, of course. Like I said, I sold direct-to-consumer. 2020, I picked up the operation for my cousin's ranch, and I had a crash course in all things direct-to-consumer. We're talking fulfillment, finishing, quality of product when it came off the line, getting it to the consumer frozen and not thawed out, doing the marketing, all of those things. Any of you guys selling direct-to-consumer right now? Okay. What would you say some of your biggest challenges are? One or two biggest challenges direct-to-consumer? Marketing, okay. Shipping, all right. Anybody have a problem getting your food processed in the meat plant? Finding a spot in the processing plant, or is that pretty good for most of you? Yeah, exactly. Here you go. 12 to 18 months. If you give them, put them on the list, and you're good. If you start right now, you're waiting 12 to 18 months most likely. You might be able to squeeze in a spot when somebody cancels, but that's another challenge we ran into. Matter of fact, we started growing so fast that I couldn't get more spots in the processing plant to actually make it viable, so we shut it down. I'm not going to spin my wheels and not be able to grow if I can't even get the meat processed, right? 2020, store shelves were empty. You drive through any rural community, there's beef standing all over in the fields, but the store shelves are empty. And the urban community is asking, what the heck's going on? I can see the cow, but I can't see the steak, right? We have these major bottlenecks that have been created over decades. So there needs to be a solution for that. So I partner with some conscious capitalists. That might be a new term for some of you. But they have a proven track record. So KD Pharma is a company that they started basically that vertically integrated the fish oil supply chain. So they bought the fishing boats in Peru. They bought the processing plants. They bought every step from, well, for them, they bought every step all the way until it went out the door into UPS or FedEx or whatever. They owned it all. They scaled it to $1.2 billion valuation and exited. They also have a tremendous amount of experience in marketing direct-to-consumer through different resources like using social media influencers and finding specific target groups for that meet the requirements of what you have to offer. One of their companies, you can look it up now, it's CompleteHuman.com. And now under that subsidiary is Wyoming Legacy Meats and Regenerative Pastures. So I come along and found some people gullible enough to get into the agriculture industry, leveraged their money, and we bought Wyoming Legacy Meats. It was an existing operating USDA plant in Cody, Wyoming. Initially, I was working to build a plant here in southern Utah or in this region because of the problems we were having. We went where, let's just made it easier, right? Now, our goal is to scale regionally, and I'll explain that in a little bit. We also have, in this particular company, all the right relationships. So when we talk about right relationships, we're talking about where does our product go besides just direct-to-consumer. There is a massive demand for the drop. Organ meats, hides. We are actually planning on taking the hides and turn them into collagen and gel capsules for supplements. And we can do that right here in the U.S., right? So there's many outlets for this that we can do all inside of our country without shipping this stuff all over the place. And we have some plans in place for that. And then it's the ability to reach millions of consumers. Strategic partnerships 5 million impressions or more. So if you're wanting to go to consumer, you have to meet them where they're at without spending a ton of money to do so, right? So things like farmers markets. Farmers markets are very effective places to meet local consumers. So if you're trying to get away from the shipping side, go to your farmers markets, find ways to leverage your relationships there. Anywhere where people are going to gather. One of the things that we're getting ready to implement is a market that actually pulls what do you call it, like a food truck. So we're going to sell hamburgers. Do you know how much hamburgers go for at the fair? You're selling $1/4 pounds for $12. If I could, if you could sell every patty you made for $12 a patty, we would all be doing better, right? So now what's happening is they're tasting your product, and right there on the side it says, by the way, sign up for a subscription. So now we're taking care of all of that in one space. It's getting creative, okay? So those are kind of the things that who we are and kind of what we're looking at. Now, how do we do that? So vertical integration, like I said, owning the whole process. Now, when I went to these guys, I said the one thing you are not going to own is the ranch, right? That's just not possible. So instead, we're going to partner with producers so that we can handle all of the middlemen work if they're not wanting to go direct to consumer. Okay, so vertical integration, the producer comes first. So now, here's what happens. For us, the USDA processing plant is no different than your squeeze chute. It's necessary to do the job, but it's not the job. So for us, Cody, Wyoming Legacy Meats is not our profit margin. It is purely cost for us, our employee labor, and keep the lights on. So now what happens is when producers come to us and they want to sell through our pipeline, we can pay a premium because we have literally cut out every single person until we ship it out the door through UPS. It's all inside. Our goal is to expand this operation regionally throughout the entire country. Cody was our first stop. The next location we're going to want to, because we kind of want to do everywhere, northwest, southwest, and so forth. Part of the reason I went this route is most of the producers I talk to, they want to just ranch. Nobody wants to take on this work, to do fulfillment, to do the marketing, to do everything that's involved there, because it's a lot of work. If they could get paid enough to be full-time ranchers and not have off-farm jobs, that would be ideal, right? That would be the ultimate goal for them to accomplish, many of them. Some people have enough family members to get involved where they can, assign each role, and that's very effective as well. If you have enough kids, one of them takes care of fulfillment. The other one takes care of marketing. The other one takes care of accounting. So there's ways to make this happen and keep more of that profit for your family. If you come to us, though, we pay you a premium on it, so we handle everything outside of there. Now, if you're going regenerative, if this weekend is something you guys if you're not already doing that and you're finishing cows on grass and you're adding multi-species enterprises and so forth, we have a huge demand for organ meats, like I was saying a minute ago. So now we are working on a process to allow the producer that sells through us with these practices in place to participate in the additional profit that comes from the organs. If you've never, typically you get paid off hanging weight, right? It's already been gutted and everything. You're not making any money on that. But we have an outlet and a huge demand for these organs and for the hides and so forth, so now our producers that follow regenerative practices or holistic management, or however you want to label that, will be able to participate. I can't sell a liver from an animal that's been fed on corn and grain. That's why the distinction is there. If it's all grass, I can sell heart, liver, the organs, because it's a healthy organ and people will eat it. That's why there's a difference. Okay, I'm not prejudiced. I like a fat, juicy, corn-finished steak as much as anybody, but we don't have a market for that. It's not a good product. So if you follow regenerative practices, we can now start paying you a little bit more, even above the grass-fed market price, because we're making an extra profit off your organ meat, right? So we want to add those values to the ranchers. The strategic partnerships with family farms. Again, if you don't want to sell your own and handle your own business, we want to partner with you. Every calf that drops on the property, it's got a home. We've got an outlet for it. That's what we're developing. Our goal is that nobody gets a box of beef that's more than one state over. Shouldn't be necessary, right? There's enough ranchers across the country that almost every consumer shouldn't be coming from Brazil, or I don't think we're bringing it from Brazil right now, but New Zealand or Australia or all these places, when all of you guys in this room have all these neighbors in these cities that you could go right to and get them that product there. Now, when we talk about cows causing problems with global warming, how many times did they bring up the shipping containers and the big shipping boats and their contribution that are bringing all this meat over? They never talk about that. We all know that. I mean, preaching to the choir, that's not the cows, it's the process. If there's any problem with the carbon from the agriculture industry, it's that we're shipping meat all over the world. We export, you guys probably know this, export as much as we import. That's a broken system, right? Makes no sense. So that's where a lot of those emissions come from that they're not even talking about. So what we have is a microprocessing or small plant design. So we're not trying to slaughter 1,000 a day. We're not trying to go that big. That's not our goal. Our goal is 100 to 200 animals a day. In about 18 months, Cody, Wyoming will have, in just a few days, Cody's going to break ground for us on a brand new plant that will scale us to 100 a day from the current about 20 a day that we can do in the plant we bought. That's why we're in Cody, because the state wants to play, right? So we went where they made it easy for us to show up. Now, our vision and our goal is to expand that all across the country. And in that process, our Cody facility does facilitate private label personal product. And we're not there to squeeze them out. We're there to facilitate that for them. I'm going to explain to you a little bit more how and why we see it that way. So again, the USDA plant for us is just a necessary tool to do business. It's not we have no profit margin that we're looking for on that, right? That's how it works. So the current supply chain versus our supply chain. So current Model A, producer, you produce it, take it to auction, and there's going to be variations in between here. I'm just making it simple. Finishing programs, processor, wholesale, store, customer. Everybody got a piece of that pie. Producer made about 14 cents, I think, on the dollar is the average price you guys get. Anybody ever hear that they're buying tomahawk steaks for $100? How much did you get for that tomahawk? Right? There's a problem with that. So Model B, producer, buyer, finishing program, processor, company X, consumer. So you're talking some third party wants to start a direct-to-consumer business and throw their label on it. That's technically what that would look like. Then we can go independent. We've got producer, processor, your direct-to-consumer process, and then the customer. So that's what a lot of people that are trying to go direct-to-consumer, that's about what that model looks like. So you still have a few middlemen in there, right? Like if I'm fulfilling all of the roles of the middleman, I have to pay my employees and I want to make a little bit of that. So you have one middleman now, it's me. And hopefully that's enough to make it profitable to be in production and not have to take on all the direct-to-consumer process. So our model is producer, you're our partner, Wyoming Legacy Meats, we're the middleman, the consumer eats the food. And we tell the story of your work. This is not about us. This, again, connecting urban with rural. We want them to know what you guys go through, what it takes to produce their food. That's the disconnect, right? They don't know that if you guys are living in the North Country that you're still out breaking ice when it's negative 30 just so your animals can have water. They have no clue. They also don't know that, if you're running a big operation, going on a vacation for a couple of weeks to some desert island is probably not in the cards because there's animals that need fed. And they don't understand that. So we help tell that story so that they, again, become the heroes in their own process by supporting what you're doing. Does that make sense? So that's how we focus on that. So that's the current supply chain and how we kind of disrupt it a little bit. Now why? Food security, empty store shelves, right? I'm a dad, I got 3 kids. Kind of concerns me when the store shelves are empty. Now fortunately, I got plenty of family that are producers, so I don't think I'll ever have to worry. But that doesn't fix the problem, right? So supply chain and store shelves, our supply chain is broken and that needs to be fixed. Environmental instability, the need for more ruminating animals. Now when you start managing regeneratively or holistically, you can start increasing the number of animals on your property. I was talking to one of my family members, and I was talking to them about this regenerative thing, and they said, well, that takes too much time. And I said, okay, I understand. Do you want to be a part-time farmer and a full-time contractor? Well, no. So if you could learn how to increase your herd density by 3 to 4 times on the same acreage, could you go full-time ranching? Well, yeah, if I could do that. See, we've been in this system, this cycle of a current way of producing that's going to have to be, there's going to have to be some sacrifice. And that's hard to say to a room of people that has already sacrificed so much. But something has to give. It's not going to change overnight. Anybody that you talk to here that's speaking that has done this, just like Jimmy talked about this morning, it's not easy in the beginning. But if you can start going full time. See, my biggest concern for my kids isn't necessarily store shelves being empty right now. It's that when my cousins are in line to take over the ranch, and they get married, and their wives see what's coming in profit-wise from the ranch, guess who's not ranching? So very shortly, we're only a couple generations away from no more family-run operations. That scares the heck out of me, because that leaves what? Corporations or government entities to be responsible for our food. So unless we redistribute this food supply chain to where it should be, that locals are feeding locals, then we're not going to have much of that stability going in the long run, right? So, loss of generational farmers and ranchers, not just a tragedy for family, it affects all Americans. Companies are waiting for this decline to increase demand of lab-grown meat. So that's something that we'll just touch on right there. You guys seen lab-grown meat? Fortunately, some of those stocks are tanking because they were all inflated with we'll just call it fake news. We've heard that term a lot lately. But there are people waiting on the sidelines for the reason to step in and take over the work that you guys have been doing for generations, right? I'm going quick, guys, just so I can answer and answer any questions. If you can't come tomorrow, I do want you to have everything, answer any questions I can for you about going direct to consumer. Anybody in here familiar with epigenetics? So we're going to talk about challenges. Yeah, epigenetics. So you have your DNA, right? That's what kind of makes up who you are and what you can do. But then there's all the space around the DNA, your environmental influences. Now the reason I'm bringing that up is because growing up and listening to what my family, who are producers, had to go through, this constantly worried about trying to keep what they have or keep what they've been working for, creates a scarcity mentality, scarcity versus abundance. Now, I used to work in the fitness industry, and we had this saying, if you get 3 coaches in a room, the only thing 2 are going to agree on is how the third one doesn't know what the heck he's doing. Okay? I did not know that carried over in the agriculture space until I got here. We keep things so close to our chest. We find this way to do something really well, and it's mum's the word. We have a saying in my family, ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies. Keep my mouth shut, and it'll catch no flies. That's a whole saying to not be open about it because of epigenetics, or this life of being raised of scarcity, constantly having things taken away. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because, like I said, let me just skip forward real quick so you guys can see this. So, bad science and misinformation, veganism is only about 4 to 6% of the entire country. 300 million people in the United States, 4 to 6% are vegan. But they're like little kids in the grocery store screaming for a sucker, banging on the floor until they get it, right? So they get the attention, they get the sucker. That's the vegan market. And I'll go to battle with that. Government policies, that's something we heard all the time, especially you go west of the Mississippi, that is our biggest hang-up. I mean, our desertification that's happening is happening because of policies. This mountain, Pine Valley Mountain, how many of you guys are from southern Utah? Yeah. Pine Valley Mountain, I even fought wildfires when I was 18. When that mountain caught on fire, it was short-lived. But we have seen the reduction of AUMs on that mountain over the decades, and the more cattle and livestock that get reduced in these rangelands, the worse the fires get. And then the worse the feed gets, right? The policies are causing desertification. Because as you're learning in this course, if you didn't already know it, rumen is necessary for a healthy ecosystem. We have to. So we need to significantly increase the cattle. This mountain over here, if you're looking towards Vegas, that's Utah Hill. We should see livestock moving back and forth that mountain all the time. We would have better rain cycles, we would have more feed, and we'd have more food for people. So policies is a challenge, but when more people come together, we can make a difference. So where the epigenetics and that kind of stuff comes into place, you guys ever see or hear of the documentary, well, that doesn't matter, but you guys are up against people like James Cameron. Who knows that name? World-renowned producer, movie producer. Titanic. What's the alien one? Avatar. If you see any of those movies, that's James Cameron's work. How many know who Leonardo DiCaprio is? Yeah. You put those two together to make a movie about how cows are killing the planet, that's who you're up against. And when you can't even talk to your siblings or your brothers about how to do something together that could be better as a whole, I'm being, when I say you, don't get mad at me. That's why we are losing the argument, because of scarcity. We are not coming together as one loud voice, and you are battling these multi-million-dollar documentaries making the producer the bad guy. We have to come together. It has to be a loud voice. That's the only way we can argue back with these crybabies in the alleyway, right? Corporate pressure, you got the big four processors. Somebody asked me earlier, are you worried about what's going to happen if you're successful? No. It's going to be a problem, but we're not worried. Fake meat, we're up against fake meat. Now, 327 million consumers in the United States. You subtract the 4 to 6%, these are rough numbers, 294 million meat consumers in the U.S. So, let's run through these numbers. Vegans make up an estimated 4%, so let's go with 6% non-meat eaters. That leaves 307.4 million. This is back of the napkin math. If somebody's out there, a mathematician, you're questioning me, I'm probably wrong. These are rough estimates, okay? So there are 307.4 million meat eaters in the United States. And there's an estimated over 2 million farms in the U.S., let's say 3 million to be conservative. In this room right now, how many of you are already selling direct-to-consumer? 2, 3 of you, right? So of all of the producers, all of you, by the way, are counted in that statistic. If you, what's it on taxes, an F something? Schedule F. If you filed Schedule F, you're in that number. And only 3 people in this entire room are selling direct-to-consumer. Do you see why we don't care about scarcity? Like for us, if our company sold direct-to-consumer, 1% of that, and then you cut that by 1%, that's 2 million customers that we would need to fulfill. We're not going to touch that. So our mission is to support as many producers as we possibly can, whether it's through us because you don't want to deal with the headache, or we can help you by showing you what we do and what helped us make us successful. Does that make sense? That's why we don't care. You are not a threat to us. We are all in this together. So, any questions about that or any questions so far? I'm happy to take them. This is very loose.
The way I like to think of it, let's say an average person spends about $100 a month on food.
Mm-hmm.
In a small town of 5,000 people, it's $5 million a month.
Yeah.
5 million.
Yes, exactly. So by this number, 120 customers per year, month, if every one of the producers counted in that 3 million number was selling direct to consumer. Okay? So there's plenty of mouths to feed in the United States to not worry about sharing your secrets with your neighbor. Does that make sense? That's what we're getting at here. Now, if you partner with us, traditional grass-fed or corn-finished beef, animals are treated with care all the way through the process. I know a lot of producers, they don't like one of the things that they kind of turn a blind eye to, I guess, is when you drop them off at the auction house, what happens next? You worked hard to care for that animal until you take it to the auction. If it comes to us, you've already treated it, you've finished it yourself, and then we take care of it from that point on. And our company is very committed to the quality of life of that animal all the way through to the finish. Our Cody plant right now, I met the gentleman that's responsible for knocking the animals, and he takes his job very seriously. He is as calm and soft to that animal to bring it down to just sitting there chewing its cud before its last moment. We do not hammer him through the system. That is not what we're here to do, okay? So both sides, whether it's regen, agriculture, or corn or grass grain finish, we take care of them that way. Private USDA processing, if you sell through us, obviously we're going to make sure there's a spot for our consumer. If otherwise, you schedule it when it fits in. When we took over the plant in Cody, Wyoming, we committed to all of our producers up there that nobody loses a spot. And we're going to keep going with whatever they have already been doing. Our beef gets fit in between. Because again, we put this together to help make a difference for the market and for the producer, not screw the producer over. We got a lot of calls as soon as they knew we bought it and took over, am I going to lose my spot? Right? Can you imagine you find out your plant was purchased? I'll tell you this. The first day we got there, waiting for us in the office was a Chinese buyer. Day one. They wanted as many shipping container loads as we could produce. We told them we have none for them because there are too many American mouths to feed than to worry about shipping our beef back across the world. Guess what? They're going to pay a premium, but we don't want it. We don't need it. If we go direct to consumer, we cut out all the middlemen, and the processing plant is just necessary for doing business. We don't need their extra dollars that they want, right? Now on the regenerative side, animals treated with care, private USDA processing, you'll get priority because we need the animals for that market. Multi-species enterprises with buyer, so if you're doing regenerative practices, a lot of guys will eventually add on pigs and lamb and goats and stuff like that, right? So now you have multi-species, we need it. So if you partner with us, we want it all. You got a place to sell it through, we pay a premium for it. And then mentorship network. Mentorship network, if you want to learn more and be connected with others and you've decided that it's okay to seek how to do things better, we want to connect you with the people that we've been working with and just help you win, help you make more money. It's all about making more money so the family ranch can be handed off. That is entirely what we set out to do. And then preferred marketing and listing. That's because, again, we can sell the drop. We have a huge customer base for the regenerative side. So the regenerative gets more marketing and focus attention than the corn and grain finish does, just because there's a much higher market demand for that with the drop that we can sell. So this is my contact information. In terms of, so tomorrow, like I said, we're going to go through and be a little bit more broken down in keys to the city. But I think what I might be able to share with you right now is, first of all, processing is always going to be a challenge. That's why we set out to build small USD processing plants all across the United States. We don't want anybody's box of beef, like I said, to show up from more than one state over. Closer if the demand is there. The next location we're looking to build a processing plant is down here in the southern Utah area, because now we can handle both northwest and southwest if we build one down here, right? But the biggest probably value add that I can offer is the how to leverage social media. So one of your biggest challenges is going to be finding people with a social following that is primarily in the area or region you're in. Because when you start shipping beef, you have roughly 48 hours of ground shipping to get it there. It's about 5 pounds of dry ice and good insulation. The cost to ship is expensive because you've got to buy all of the packaging to keep that frozen to where it's going. So if you can find influencers in your region, a lot of times you want to look for what we call a micro-influencer. A micro-influencer is somebody who has between 10,000 and about 50,000 to 100,000 followers. Okay? So if you don't have social media, you're going to get sucked in unless you find one of your kids to do it. But the reason we focus on those micro-influencers is because they're highly engaged with their audience, because they're the up-and-coming. If you get to somebody who's already got 1.1 million or even 500,000 followers, they're busy. They've got money coming in from sponsors, and they're not as engaged directly with the people that's commenting on their posts, right? So when you go with the micro-influencer, they are still trying to make it as an influencer. And so they have a higher engagement rate with their audience because they're new. And so a lot of times you can work with an influencer, especially the micro-influencers, and offer them a monthly box of beef in exchange for them sharing your product, what you're doing. Does that make sense? So you get a hold of these influencers, send a few messages through social media, wait for them to get back to you and negotiate the terms. If you get over that 100,000 mark, sometimes they think they're worth more than they are. Now, looking at engagement of social media, you want to look, or looking for influencers, you don't want to just look at their followers. You want to look at how many people are interacting with their posts as well. Because if somebody has 100,000 followers and 100 people are clicking that heart, or 2 or 3 are commenting, then they could have paid for those followers, or any other variation of activity that caused people to not really care what they were doing, right? A lot of influencers are, they're taking their clothes off to get the followings, and so nobody cares what they actually have to say. So you need to watch for that as well. Does that make sense? I think by the reactions you guys get what I'm saying. So you want high engagement influencers. A high engagement in the influencer space is about 5%. 2% is decent. 5% is high. So keep that in mind as you're looking for the right person to help market your product and help get it out there. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions for me?
How many beef did you say you killed today in Cody?
Right now, we can only kill 20. In about 18 months, we'll be able to do 150.
How many employees are that?
And our facility,
The big facility.
our 20 facility has 30, so we're probably looking at about 100 at least.
What do you get? You get 100 employees from Cody, Wyoming,
Yeah, we are, no, I'm answering because you're right. That's what we're working on. See, for us in Cody, we also now have to solve for housing because there's no housing. So we've already been in contact, the Economic Development Department is very interested in bringing industry into Cody. And so they have land that's in what's called an opportunity zone. And so we can get investment to build barracks or temporary housing so that our employees can stay in those. And then with what our plan is if we offer housing as part of their employment, we don't have to worry about a seasonal restaurant coming along and offering $2 an hour more to steal them just during the summer. Because Cody's issue is that, it's a seasonal town.
It's the same as around here.
Yep.
No housing.
Yep.
No people.
Yep. Exactly. So the other direct answer to that is we have people coming up from Mexico that do want to do the work. That's how it works. Yep. And they work hard. They're happy for the job. And if they have a spouse, their spouse works hard and is happy for the job. So our biggest challenge isn't necessarily finding the employees. We know where to find them. It's where to put them. So, yeah.
You have a minimum order, like, 2 cows, do you buy 2 cows? Or do you want like
Yes. Nope. We'll buy them. If you can get them to us, we'll buy them.
So we need to get it to you.
Yeah, well, we can work that out, right? What we pay will drop if we have to ship them, but you don't have, if you're further away, that could be a challenge, but we don't have a minimum order. So when we have a plant down here and it's close, that's easy. We even got a guy with a trailer from our business that will just hot shot out to the ranch, load up a few in the cattle trailer and bring them back to us. Yep. Wade.
Yeah, we've talked several times that, I know you've been working at this a long time. Are you going to talk tomorrow more about some of the details and particulars of what you're going to require from producers?
No, but I can do that right now. Tomorrow's more about the how-tos of shipping your beef and getting your brand up there and so forth. So, yeah, so I set out to do this because I wanted to see, so my family are Arizona Strip ranchers. And they went out there in 1916 and homesteaded the Arizona Strip. And the historical writings say that the grass was stirrup high. And they could throw seeds in the ground and they'd grow whatever. They were growing potatoes, corn, cotton, no problem.
Where's this at, AJ?
The Bundyville, right where that schoolhouse is. You ever been straight out of here? You ever been down out there to the Arizona Strip?
No, I don't even know. I'm from Arizona. I've never-
Oh, great. So it's this side of the Grand Canyon, north side of the Grand Canyon. Yep. So that's the historical writing. Well, 5-10 years later, they couldn't count on the rain cycles, they couldn't grow anything anymore, and they were having a hard time with water. Okay? So there was an environmental impact being done, unbeknownst to them, by the way they were managing. So a few years ago, I came across a gentleman named Alan Savory and saw his post about how what we can do with Mother Nature, she will restore completely in about 3 to 5 years. Now, listen, context is a thing, right? But I am connected with producers all over the world who get less rain than we do in the Arizona Strip, talking 6 inches or less. And if you saw the impact of rotationally grazed cattle following in their context, you would never believe it. So on the regenerative pasture side, we're looking for animals that are finished on grass and really have spent their whole life on grass. Eventually, we're going to have a protocol that we will ask the producer to meet, and we'll verify that. So the other part of that, if you're not raising on grass or finishing on grass and you're in a feedlot, we do have a market for that, but we don't take anything with antibiotics or hormones. And I know that can be a sticky subject for some people. It's just what the market is demanding and frankly what I believe in. From the health space, I understand some impacts of the residual antibiotics that live inside the meat and so forth. So we are selling to a consumer that's a little bit more educated and wise on what's in their meat.
I'm just curious, when it comes to vaccines, a lot of our consumers care about whether or not ours are vaccinated.
Yeah. We will probably have a line that's unvaccinated as well, and we'll not sure how to cross that bridge yet, because it is. It's like,
And it's always maybe regional because,
yeah.
in some regions where your cows are a lot more lab gain,
Mm-hmm.
there's greater
Right.
transmission versus
Right. But exactly. And we also know if you follow regenerative practices and they're constantly rotating and you have chickens following behind that's cleaning up the parasites and all these kind of things, we can mitigate the need for a lot of that. So there are producers out there successfully and effectively doing that. So we have that line. So if you're feeding on corn and grain, as long as it's antibiotic-free and hormone-free, we'll do business with you on that end. If it's grass-fed and finished, right now we don't require a certification or verification for the regenerative side specifically, but we will only take that that grass-fed and finished.
So, was your entire marketing campaign built around influencers?
We cultivated a list. There's a website called Fiverr. You're going to want to write this down, FIVERR.com. Basically, it's freelance people that you can hire for everything. Building a website, building your logo, collecting data on influencers. So I paid $33. They collected a list of 41 influencers. I gave them I said no less than 10,000. And so this person for $30 and went and did all that work. So I could keep doing what I'm doing, right? So it takes forever, yeah. So leverage Fiverr. For $30, I saved myself an entire day's labor. It was worth every penny, or more, exactly. So, what was the question? I think I got sidetracked there.
No, it was just...
Yeah.
Because there's so many marketing avenues.
Yes.
And we've done Facebook ads, we work
Yep.
with influencers, but I've spent more time on Facebook ads than influencers.
Yep.
And it sounds like it's a little obsolete.
Yeah, so influencers and then the farmer's market. Meet them where they're at. And if you can add a barbecue grill to it so they can taste your product while they're shopping, that's a plus. And you just made $12 on a quarter-ounce patty. Thank you.
When you do farmers markets, are you just hitting up, are you hitting the same one or are you trying to move around?
Same one. Yeah, if you bounce around too much, you don't create consistency in people seeing you, right? So in marketing in general, there's a rule of thumb like 7 impressions. So if I went to this one this month, and I went to this one next month, and I went to this one next month, the people that are frequenting the farmer's market are not going to know who I am. They haven't had enough exposure to who I am. But so when I do the farmer's market out when I was doing the farmer's market at Tuacahn in 2020, my sales increased after about 4 months because they saw me there every Saturday. And it was worth it. Now, it took time. So that's the thing you have to ask yourself. If you want to go direct to consumer, do you have the time? Or does partnering with somebody like us who's going to pay you premium because we've cut out all the middlemen make sense? So, yeah, farmers markets for sure, and be consistent. Yeah. There's a really good podcast called the Ranching Burnett Podcast. I don't think she's even doing shows anymore. The reason I bring her up is she interviewed specifically first-generation farmers and ranchers. What could they have to offer? They are leveraged to the hilt for their farm or ranch because not one of them had it handed down to them. So when they took out all those loans to buy the land, to buy the livestock, to buy the feed, their mindset is different. They are looking for any way to make a profit. Does that make sense? That podcast is a gold mine if you're willing to listen and not assume that they don't know what they're talking about.
What was that called again?
The Ranching Burnett Podcast.
Burnett is in here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, she hasn't posted anything for a while, so I don't know what's going on, but there's a bank of information, and every single one of her interviews are, I think, first-generation farmers or ranchers, and they have, it's a gold mine of information on how they've been able to make profit.
It's true, when you inherit a farm, you kind of feel almost like a bear.
Yeah, it can be, yep. But then you also inherit some of the family drama. So, yeah.
I had a question.
Yeah, please.
I know the state of Utah, we're actually putting money in towards actually building more meat
Mm-hmm.
processing. What is the big, and same problem, there's just not enough workers or anybody that, knows how to be a butcher or
Yeah.
process meat. So that's a big problem for it. And you said it was mostly like work labor and just finding people how to cut a meat or how to.
Yeah, our issue here in southern Utah wasn't labor. It was policymakers being willing to work with us. Now, we are looking for more than what they want, right? We're looking for, so here, I'll just tell you, Cody, they raised a bunch of money through their state and city government. They're building us the plant, and we're leasing it back over 20 years. They made it very easy for us to go there. Why are they doing that? Well, they want jobs. They want stability for the producers in the region. And so it made sense for them to invest in somebody that had the business acumen to be effective with that. Right? When we go to anybody here, there's nobody wanting to support that. And so we're like, okay, we're going to, and like New Mexico's offering us some pretty sweet deals to go to New Mexico. So we would like to take our money and put it in the marketing and putting it into the process so we can pay the producer more. And we'll pay for that plant. It's just, we don't want to pay for it out of pocket if we don't have to. Like I said, I went and found some people much smarter than me. In 2020, when I saw the writing on the wall that the only way to make this work was to own the plant, I did not have a clue that I'd be standing here as a partner in a plant a year later. And it was necessary. So, yeah.
What kind of premiums are you going to be paying for finished pasture?
We are still working on that, but we will be 10 to 20 cents over market value on grass-fed. So, and then that's not including the bonus for the drop. So we have partners that already make shoes, and they want to build a plant in Cody, Wyoming, and basically take and slap it on their shoes after they use vegetable tanning to process it. So we've got big outlets for that, so we can pay more. Yeah.
He just wanted me. Can you ship unvaccinated cows across state lines?
I don't know, you guys might know that better than me.
Not in California, I can tell you that.
Yeah, not in California, that's for sure. Yeah, yeah. So listen, the other thing about this too, this whole plan came together from me listening and interviewing people in this, you guys. So after this session, throughout the next day, please come up and offer me some feedback. Are we doing it the right way? Is there more we can be doing for you? I'm not trying to fix something that's not broken, right? So if we're going one direction, but it makes more this direction, I'm all ears. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to be of service. That's it. So please, if you have any thoughts, come up. If anything like that is there, I'm all ears.
Have you thought about small butcher shops, like, fat eats?
Mhm.
You have, where I worked before, there's a guy from Polish, his great-grandpa did sausages, and he has a butcher shop where he processes deer, cow, they just bring in, he does that, and, the recipe that fat.
Yeah.
So, so I thought that was this is like this little town, and he processes it, and he just brings out a giant book and shows you, what do you want?
Yeah, that's cool. So he's buying the whole animal, bringing it to his shop, and then offering custom cuts and stuff. Yeah.
And then there's like
Yeah.
he does spices, he does his own, his own little
Mhm.
operation in there, and just a small town, urban family up in Kane, Pennsylvania that I ended up in. And
Yeah.
I mean, is there a market for that?
Yeah, we've looked into that, but if we only did that, we are not solving the processing problem. And there's such a bottleneck across the entire country in getting a spot. I mean, I've got uncles that have been waiting 18 months for their own beef for their own freezer, right? And it's just booked. So, yeah.
What was that website again?
The website for contracting is called Fiverr, FIVERR.com. And just, you would type in the search bar, influencer list, and it'll bring up contractors and what they do, and it'll even have a star rating on how successful they've been for people that have hired them. Yep.
In the beginning, you kind of talked about, helping people become the hero of their own journey through supporting you. I don't know, then we also talked about speaking their language. I find that message really hard to craft.
Very hard to craft. That's why I think that the biggest value I could add coming back into agriculture was having lived in that world, right? So what they care about, what people in the urban environments care about, is they care about what's on the news. What's dominating the news cycle outside of COVID? Climate change. Whether you agree or believe or any of that, it doesn't matter, right? The outcome will be different based on whether you understand that that's what they're hearing.
Relax, start watching the news again.
Yeah, there you go. Talk to people there. Ask Fiverr. What's the news saying? But yeah, you have to answer what they're listening to. I had family that had a little showdown with the federal government. And I made a phone call and said, hey, listen, I'm in LA at a seminar. And it's a self-development seminar, so people there were they weren't as outspoken or angry about what was happening, right? So they were there to listen a little bit more and to take in and understand their own thoughts. That was on the news 24/7 during that seminar. Nobody in that room had any clue that that was my cousin. So I was just listening. So I made a phone call and I said, listen, you are only speaking to a very small demographic. Most of them already believe in what you're doing. They may not believe in the method, but they understand there's a problem. You're not going to change it if you're only speaking to the people that are already on that side. You have to connect with the people that are not understanding. And I said, guess what? They cannot hear past the armed militia. Nothing you say, nothing you're trying to accomplish, nothing you're doing matters to them because all the news is talking about is our militia, our militia, our militia. That's the breakdown. So if you want to be successful, you look at what's speaking to them. Health, right? Health is a big one. Climate change is a big one. And what else is, if you break it down, like if you influencer communities, like right now we're working with a lot of stay-at-home moms that are influencers. What matters to them is planning their meals on Monday or Sunday. Got to go to a grocery store. So the messaging is, let's make it easy for you. Be the hero of the dinner table. Got your meals all planned out. You get a box of beef, it's got Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You don't have to worry about spending time figuring out what you're going to do for dinner, right? If you're targeting the fitness community, they care about healthy, clean food, that's going to give them size, potentially. Does that make sense? If you're talking to the grilling community, what they want to know about is what's going to taste best on the Traeger. You know, what are your buddies going to be glad that you grilled for them during the Super Bowl? That's how you start speaking the different languages to the different demographics. So, that'll be a repeat for tomorrow. Anybody else? Any questions? I think I went over time. All right, again, open invitation. Tell me how bad my idea sucks or tell me how much you love it. Either way, I appreciate your time.